Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Internet Computer Developer Journey. In today's episode, 4.5, using Quill, we're going to be taking a look at the CLI tool Quill, which is used to interact with both the ICP ledger and the SNS. So since in previous modules we've covered both of those, we can now take a look at Quill and understand how it can be used to support self-custody of ICP or CKBTC tokens, and then how it can interact with the SNS, SNSs, and the ICP ledger from a cold wallet. So what does a cold wallet mean? So when you want to hold digital assets such as tokens, there are typically three types of wallets. There is a centralized wallet service, which is owned and operated by a third-party centralized exchange. The user is not in control of the wallet's private key. The centralized wallet service is. So an example would be Coinbase. A hot wallet is any wallet that uses an application on a device that is connected to the internet. The difference between a hot wallet and a centralized wallet service is that with a hot wallet, users are in full control of their wallet's private key. And then lastly, cold wallets are offline devices that have a wallet that is not connected to the internet. So this might be a computer that has no internet connection, or it could be some other device that does not have internet capabilities. And like a hot wallet, a cold wallet provides users with full control of their wallet's private key. Each of these options has their benefits, and they typically have an equal trade-off between convenience and security. For example, cold wallets are quite secure since they don't have the ability to be subject to malicious cyber attacks since they are completely offline, but it's not very convenient to use them since there has to be additional steps taken in order to move assets to a hot wallet or a centralized exchange in order to spend or use those assets. And then the opposite is true for hot wallets. They are convenient to use but susceptible to attacks. We have some supporting documentation about self-custody wallet options that is linked here in this tutorial as well. So today we're going to take a look at how to use the Quill CLI tool for workflows like interacting with the ICP ledger, sending or receiving CKBTC, and interacting with the SNS and neurons. So Quill is a CLI tool that is used for interacting with the ICP governance and ledger canisters. One of the unique things about Quill is it has the ability to create signed messages on an offline computer or a cold wallet, and then that message can be transferred to an online computer and submitted to the mainnet in order for them to take effect. Since ICP uses cryptographically verified messages, the network will accept the message no matter how it was created, so it can be created offline and then submitted at a later time on an online computer. In order to properly support cold wallets, Quill uses two steps to send query and update calls to ICP. First, it uses a subcommand to generate and sign the message, and then it uses a second command to submit that signed message to ICP. The first step does not require an internet connection, while the second one does. In order to submit that signed transaction to the mainnet, if it's on a cold wallet that does not have connection to the internet, Quill gives you the option to print out a QR code that can be scanned on an online device and then used to submit the transaction, or the signed transaction can be transported to another computer using a USB stick. It is important to note that while we are talking about Quill's capabilities to support cold wallet workflows, Quill can be used on any computer, so it does not have to be a cold wallet that is disconnected from the internet. It can be a hot wallet, and it will support all of the signing and submitting functionalities that Quill enables. But it is important to note that transactions that use query requests, such as obtaining an account's balance or returning proposal information, will require an internet connection, and they cannot be run on cold wallets. And this is because submitting these query calls locally would not return any of the important information. For example, if you wanted to query the information about the most recent SNS proposal, there's no way for the cold wallet to obtain that information, only having the local environment to work with. So to download and install Quill, if you want to do this on a cold wallet, you can either follow these steps and then disconnect the computer from the internet, or you can download the release file and transport it to the offline machine using something like a flash drive. In this tutorial, it's going to be assumed that you're going to be using Quill on a machine with an internet connection. So that is the workflow that we're going to be demonstrating in the video today. But this tutorial does include notes on how to support cold wallet workflows for some of the things that we'll be doing. So first, we need to download the latest Quill release from GitHub. So we're going to go ahead and go to GitHub, and it looks like at the time of this video, the latest version is this 0.5.0. And then I'm going to find the release for my operating system and go ahead and download that. And then we're going to need to move the file to the user local bin directory. These instructions that I'm following are going to be for Mac OS. If you need instructions for Linux or Windows, they are both linked in this tutorial. So I'm just going to navigate into my downloads folder. I'm going to make sure that that Quill Mac OS x86 file exists. And so then I want to go ahead and move this. So I'm going to move Quill x86 to user local bin Quill. Okay, and here we will see that I personally did not have the initial permissions to move that file, and I did have to elevate my user's permissions with the sudo command. So just an important thing to note if you run into a similar permissions denied error based on your local machine. So now I'm going to go ahead and just give myself execute permissions on that user local bin Quill file. And then let's make sure Quill was installed properly by running the help command. And we can see that it could not be verified. Okay, so let's try that again. And we can see that Quill was installed properly since the help command returns all of the possible subcommands and help information for Quill. So let's go ahead and use the basic Quill commands. So the first one is quill generate. This is going to generate a new account's private key. And so we can see here that the seed phrase is the series of words, and it's recommended that you save this seed phrase in some secure external media source. And then you'll need to give it an encryption password. So I'm going to type my password in, and then it will have you re-enter it. And then we can see that we get a principal ID, a legacy account ID, and it's let us know that it's written our identity to this identity.pem file. So this is going to hold the private key for this principal ID. Alternatively, you can also use an existing private key file for an existing ledger account that has an ICP balance. So to do that, you will need the accounts.pem file. To get this PEM file, you can use the DFX identity export command. And so what that would look like is we would use DFX identity who am I. We're going to see that I'm using my dev journey identity, and then we can get the private key for that by doing DFX identity export default, and we're going to want to replace default with our name. So we want dev journey and then identity.pem. And I added too many carrots. There we go. And then we can pass this .pem file into our quill command with the flag pem file and then the name of that, which is identity.pem. And so we can see that if I ls and then look just for the identity.pem file, we only have one. And so I will note that what I did here with exporting this, it overwrote the one that quill generated here, since it wrote it to the local directory that we're in. So I did overwrite that. So if you want to export your DFX identity as a different file and keep this one that you generated, be sure to rename your DFX one something different. But in this case, it's okay. We didn't do anything with that quill identity. We did not transfer any tokens to it. So it's totally fine for us to have overwritten that, but in all situations, that is not applicable. So now we can see the balance of that account with quill pem file identity.pem account balance. And then we're going to need the principal ID. So we're going to run dfx identity get principal. And then we'll go back to that command and copy this and paste it in. And we can see that it's going to generate the transaction for us. So this is the transaction that if we were on a cold wallet, we would submit no, and we would want to cancel this request since it wouldn't have anywhere to be submitted. But since we're on a hot wallet, we have internet connection, we're going to hit Y, and we're going to have this be submitted to the mainnet. And then we're going to get some feedback about the request being submitted to the mainnet and processed. And we can see that my balance for that dev journey identity is almost 7 ICP tokens. And then if we wanted to transfer ICP to another account, we would use that same syntax where we are using quill and then the pem file flag and the identity.pem file. But then we would use the transfer command and then the flag amount, the amount that we want to transfer. So we'll just do 1 ICP, and then we'll need another account to transfer this to. So for this, I'm just going to go to the SNS DApp, and I'm just going to log in with my internet identity, and then I will transfer this 1 ICP token to my SNS wallet. And so here we can get my wallet ID here and paste it here. And we can see that it sends us, or it returns us the request information. And this is going to be in the JSON format. And you can also save this to a file if you want to submit this on a hot wallet, if you're doing this on a cold wallet. So you can use this command and then use the greater than sign to output it to, we'll call it transfer transaction.json, and that'll save it in that file. And then if you want to send this transaction, now that you have its content in the JSON format and it's saved in that file, we can do quill pem file identity.pem, and then we can use the send transaction and then that file name, and it will confirm that we're sending a message. It's an update call, it's coming from our principal ID, it's a transfer, and it has some details about the transaction itself. And then we want to send it, we'll hit yes, and then it will let us know that it's being processed. And then we can see the transfer was sent, and we can confirm that by going back to the SNS DApp. And we can see that now this has a balance of 10 ICP. So now we can also look into how we can use quill with CKBTC tokens. So to do that, we're going to use the quill CKBTC balance, and then the flag of, and then we need our principal ID, which I can just copy from the output of our last transaction there. And then it's going to confirm if we want to send this transaction. I'm going to click yes. And then it's going to send that to the mainnet, and we can see that my balance is 0. And then if we want to retrieve some BTC in exchange for CKBTC, we can use the quill CKBTC retrieve -BTC. And then we're going to need our CKBTC address, so we can get one over here on the NNS stat by clicking on CKBTC and then clicking on the QR code and getting our CKBTC address and pasting that here. And then for the amount, we're going to use the flag Satoshis, since that is the smallest denomination of Bitcoin. And then we'll just put 100. And then we can output this to a JSON file called retrieve transaction.json. And then if we want to send that transaction, we can use that quill send retrieve transaction. And then we can confirm that we want to send that transaction again. So we'll hit Y and we'll go and send that. And we can see that we have an error. The debit account doesn't have enough funds to complete the transaction. And then it's going to ask if we want to send this update call as a follow-up, and we'll hit Y. And we can see that I get a rejection error since I did not have enough funds to complete the transaction, so I was not allowed to complete the transaction. But if I did have some CKBTC tokens, it would have been successful. And then you can do the same with transferring CKBTC to another address. You can use the CKBTC transfer command, and you can save it to a JSON file and then submit it as well. That transaction would fail for me as well, since I don't have any current CKBTC tokens. So moving on, let's go back to the NNS and how to use quill with the NNS. So it can be used with both the NNS and any SNS that has already been launched on ICP. And if you haven't checked out the previous tutorial on NNS governance and staking, we covered how to interact with the NNS through the NNS DApp. And then also on the YouTube channel here, we have a series called NNS Explained that goes in depth on all of the different workflows you can do with the NNS. And I highly recommend that if you are interested in concepts regarding the NNS further, you take a look at that series. So for this, we're just going to do some simple commands to get some information about neurons and proposals on the NNS. So first, if we want to look at some info about a neuron, we need to get that neuron's ID. So I'm going to head back over to the NNS DApp. I'm going to go over to my neurons, and I'm going to go to my first neuron here. That's my oldest neuron, so I'll have the most information for us. And my neuron ID is going to be this long identifier at the top that I'm just going to copy. And then I'm going to go back to my command line. I'm going to use quill get neuron info, and then I'm going to paste that neuron ID. And it's going to ask if I want to submit that transaction. I'm going to select yes, and then I'm going to wait for it to be processed. And then here we can see the total stake, the voting power, the current state that it's in, the dissolve delay, the time and date that it was created, and then a timestamp that this data is accurate as of today at this timestamp. And then I can also get a list of all neurons that belong to my identities principal. So quill pem file identity.pem list neurons, and then we're going to save the output to list neurons.json. And so this identity here is my developer identity, and I don't think I have any neurons associated with this, so this may return a null value for us. but we're going to go ahead and submit that transaction anyways and see what we get. And like I expected, I got nothing in return, and that's because this developer journey identity does not have any neurons. If I wanted to manage a neuron, I would be able to, through the quill command here and through this neuron manage subcommand, and you can use that and see a full list of arguments with the quill neuron manage help command. And you can see all of the possible things that you can do with a neuron. You can add hotkeys, you can make the dissolve delay longer, you can change its state and make it start or stop dissolving, disperse the amount if it's unlocked. You can also spawn or split the neuron or merge the neuron. And so all of these are supported through quill that you can do programmatically from the command line. In this instance, since my local identity here doesn't own any of the neurons currently, none of these commands would have an effect on any neuron. But we can go ahead and make a new neuron with this developer identity, since I did make sure that I have a balance of ICP in this identity. So I can go ahead and use quill pem file identity.pem neuron stake amount, and we're just going to do 1 name, and we'll give it a name. We'll just call it dev journey, and then we'll save this to stake neuron.json, and the neuron name must be less than 8 characters, so I'll just call it dev journ, and then I can use quill send stake neuron.json to send that transaction. And it will confirm that we want to create this neuron. And now we can see that I've successfully staked ICP in a neuron with this identity. And so now I can go back up here and we can run a command that modifies this neuron. So we can do quill pem file identity.pem neuron manage, and then I'll go ahead and take this neuron ID that I just got, and then we can make it start dissolving, and then we'll save that to manage neuron.json, and then quill send manage neuron.json, and we'll go ahead and send that message. And looks like I got an NNS error, but it looks like I don't have the details of what that error was. So let's go ahead and try a different command for what we can do. So let's do quill neuron manage help. And let's go ahead and add additional dissolve delay seconds instead. So we'll go back to our command here, and instead of this start dissolving flag, let's add Let's add 100,000 additional seconds, and then quill send manage neuron. And we'll send that transaction. And it looks like this one was successful. And so lastly, we can also use quill to get information about the NNS's current proposals. So if we want to take a look at the current pending proposals, we can do quill list proposals, and then we can limit it to just 3. And we'll go ahead and submit that transaction. And so we can see proposal ID 131693. This is the details for this proposal. and we can take a look at the proposed actions for each one. So this first one, execute NNS function, NNS canister upgrade. And we can see that the summary is to update the subnet to the latest replica version. And then the second proposal is also updating a subnet. And it looks like the last one got cut off with its details. Oh, the last one, the details are way up here. Yeah, the last one, the details are lots of release notes and verification and all of that. So there's lots of output for that. And then if we want to get detailed information about a specific proposal, we can take just the proposal ID and do quill get proposal info, and then copy that ID and then send that transaction. And then we can get detailed information just about that proposal. So that'll wrap things up for today's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the DFINITY YouTube channel to be updated for when the next episode of the Internet Computer Developer Journey is released. You can also learn more about the NNS in the DFINITY YouTube series NNS Explained. I highly recommend that you check that series out for additional context and deep dives into different functions of the NNS. For resources and questions about today's video, you can leave comments in the YouTube comment section or check out the resources listed in the video description. You can also reach out to the community via the developer forum or the developer Discord server. That's it for me. Take care.